Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Seth the Programmer, and today this I think is a really interesting matchup. We've got the third Hokage versus Danzo. This is an interesting one. Both of them have got such interesting techniques and abilities, and in such high status within Konoha. Going to be really interested to see where this goes. So let's check this out. The third Hokage versus Danzo.
Yo, what's up, everyone? It's your father, Seth the Programmer. With me today, I have my
I was
son,
6.
the Naruto YouTuber.
Not again.
Today he didn't eat all my fries, but I did see him.
There was a funny intro on the last one when they worked together, right?
Out of our closet today, and I was like, all right, listen, you're gonna pay me back, and we're gonna upload another collab to get those chips back, all right? So today we're doing something we read in the comments of our last video, which was Danzo versus Hiruzen.
Unironically, never done before. Just say that.
Unironically, never.
Yeah.
The only time it's ever been done is just those random 12-year-old made power level videos on YouTube with zero context, which don't count. So yeah,
fair enough.
This is one of the first.
It's a really interesting matchup.
It's kind of a generic matchup that you hear a lot, but yeah, no one's ever really talked about it. I don't know if it's out of fear of views or what, but it is an interesting matchup, and considering we did our Minato versus Orochimaru, I feel like Hiruzen versus Danzo is actually more thematically interesting, if anything.
I think so.
We did Minato versus Orochimaru with Swagonai because Kishimoto was clearly trying to establish a rivalry between them, which never really panned out.
No, did not.
In the manga a few times. But this is more interesting because these are two old pseudo-ish rivals. It's more of a one-sided rivalry that Hiruzen dominated, where they both wanted to become Hokage.
Yeah.
However, Danzo missed the bar. He didn't have that strong will of fire, or he didn't have that strong resolve to sacrifice himself for the other Leaf Shinobi like Hiruzen was, and Tobirama was the guy. And also, back in the day, Hiruzen was the strongest of their troop. Now, whether that means that Hiruzen was stronger than Tobirama when Tobirama made him Hokage, probably not, because of the simple fact that someone does comment that Tobirama is the strongest shinobi in Konoha when that happens. And then it seems as though Hiruzen becomes this ultimate god of war like shinobi, where he's running across battlefields with him and Enma after the fact. So that's where he establishes his big legend, which I really hope that the legend is he slapped up Kinkaku and Kinkaku. I really hope that's...
That would be class if it was, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's what would establish him as so legendary, is if he did something like that. But we never hear about it. So
about the Tobirama versus Hiruzen thing, I want to comment on it real quick, because there's a statement in, I think, Data Book 4 that says Hiruzen surpassed Tobirama as
he's
a
more
child.
talented than him.
But yeah, it's literally just talking about talent. He's got better ninjutsu and stuff because he has more nature transformations. He can do more jutsu. And Tobirama, he's not really a guy who focuses on learning other people's jutsu.
No, he really just focuses on his own and then working on those. Yeah.
That's probably what it's
I see that.
about.
Yeah.
Not that he's actually 4-year-old Hiruzen, but Enma Bob Tobirama or something like that.
Yeah. So the Tobirama versus Hiruzen debate is its own topic entirely.
Yeah.
Personally, I can say Hiruzen, at least as an Edo, is stronger. But, whoever you think is stronger is whatever. He was probably, in his prime, he's definitely stronger than Tobirama.
He's an absolute beast.
But as an old man, that's a totally different subject. So, the interesting thing, though, is that Hiruzen was always stronger than Danzo when they were growing up. They were both under Tobirama's squad, as an example. And Hiruzen was the top dog, but Danzo, over time, as both he and Hiruzen decay from age, this applies to Tsunade as well, all the shinobi are decaying from age, which is why Orochimaru's whole thing is,
immortality.
Hiruzen as the top dog shinobi, the god of war shinobi, who was solo stomping everyone and creating waves, made the Sani, did all this crazy stuff. And then he saw, his master grow old and fall from grace, and he's like, okay, if a shinobi who can learn every
that
jutsu,
damn powerful is just gonna fall.
Capacity to learn ninjutsu is how strong you are. He thinks that Hiruzen, who mastered every jutsu, was the strongest shinobi, and if the strongest shinobi falls from grace due to aging, he needs to solve aging.
Yeah, so that's why the immortality thing,
as well applies to Jiraiya probably, and it probably applies to Tsunade. With Jiraiya, he overcame that due to his Sage Mode.
Sage Mode was definitely helpful with that, yeah.
Even though he's been aging, or he's mastered it more, and he's learned more techniques. Orochimaru surpassed aging via literally swapping bodies with younger people. And Tsunade, her way of overcoming aging is more contentious.
Just
it's
look
implied
young.
that she mastered new jutsu over the years, which is stated by Orochimaru. He thinks that she has mastered more jutsu since he last saw her, so perhaps she has been honing her abilities, even though her reflexes and stuff have aged as well. And Danzo's way of overcoming aging was he just threw Sharingans and Hashirama cells all over his body. That's how Danzo overcame aging. And the thing with Hiruzen is that even though Hiruzen was the ultimate shinobi, at least at his time, he never did anything to overcome aging. He's just like,
kept going.
Minato's crazy. He just like sold like 1,000 ninja at once. Like he can be Hokage. I'll just go smoke my.
Yeah, and then he died, and it's like, oh, I guess I'm back in the seat then.
Shinobi? Oh, damn. And then he still remained being Kage or whatever. But he never did anything to overcome his aging. So Danzo, if anything, would become probably more powerful, and Hiruzen just only becomes weaker, which then makes the discussion more interesting. Did Danzo's amps allow him to surpass Hiruzen, who's only decayed extremely rapidly? Seeing Anoki go crazy on Madara just makes you really exaggerate how badly aging. I don't know if it's his clan or what, but Hiruzen aged like milk. He's rotten milk right now.
Hiruzen didn't train or anything.
Like the whole like Minato era and stuff like that. And
because they sort of imply in the data books that Hiruzen has like this parental relationship with everyone in the village. So maybe he's too busy on being like the father figure Hokage.
Yeah, rather than actually honing his skills and continuing to grow stronger. Yeah, I can see that.
Right. So not only is he aging, but he's also growing a little bit rusty as well. Yeah. But even though he's extremely rusty and out of it, he's still master of over 1,000 illusions alone.
Damn.
You know, everyone's like, oh, Kakashi has over 1,000 jutsu. Yeah, Hiruzen has over 1,000 genjutsu.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
On top of knowing every jutsu in the Leaf Village. So that's why Hiruzen was
heck of a repertoire.
Kakashi was the prime example of an elite shinobi. He was a shinobi, the prime example of a very powerful jonin. Hiruzen was the prime example of a Kage, which was, instead of 1,000 jutsu, he just had even 1,000 illusions on top of all his other jutsu. And that was kind of the discrepancy between them. On top of that, you have Hiruzen shown compared to Orochimaru, and Orochimaru at the time, Kakashi just by looking at him was like, wow, if I tried fighting Orochimaru, he would have just decapitated me.
Yeah, he was scared of him at that time, wasn't he? It's like, whoa.
Yeah, I need to go lift some weights. That's literally what happened.
I'm a fool. He's like, I completely miscalculated. What's wrong with me?
Yeah. So Hiruzen was a next level opponent, and so is Orochimaru. Now, what's interesting though is that Danzo is also rather impressive, but is he as impressive as Hiruzen?
Well, take his fight against Sasuke, and then how would that go down against Hiruzen at the time?
So the main thing we all have to use to scale Danzo is like ignoring hacks, right? We'll go over Kodo Mazukami later.
We'll go over the actual.
Shisui's technique from the eye that he had from him.
Danzo's fight with these random shinobi.
He just one-shots him.
And it's just sort of implied that Danzo just mops up these jonin. But it's something you sort of expect from this person anyway. Like he pulls out his Sharingan. He's like, oh, I got a Sharingan. It's like pretty obvious, whatever. So he mops up jonin. He's clearly above jonin level, whatever. He's like a Kage level here. And then he gets into his fight with Sasuke, and you would think Danzo is doing pretty well, but we went over it. He's kind of not.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, we like to do brainstorming before the base. We don't script our collabs. We like to brainstorm just like for a few minutes.
Cool.
And when we looked at the fight, we were like, wait a minute. He kind of just is getting one-tapped over and over again until Sasuke just gets tired.
Like, there's literally a part where Sasuke's coming at Danzo, and in one swoop, he cuts off his arm and then cuts Danzo in half. And it's like, what? Like, and then he crushes him with the Susanoo hand.
Oh yeah, he did that. Yeah.
Crushes him and kills him one time. The arrow is too fast for him to even weave signs or something like that. Like, he's literally getting bullied the entire fight. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, something else, though, is, like, if you want, like, a more direct scale, how strong is Danzo actually? he's able to somewhat, like, peel apart, like, the armor of the Susanoo.
Yeah.
Using his summoning jutsu, as well as him using a wind style that's, like, being enhanced via his summoning jutsu on Sasuke's back, while his Susanoo is somewhat immobile. It's somewhat immobile because it doesn't even have legs at this moment, but that's a whole different argument. But even after using, like, basically his ultimate AP technique, like, if he was to have, you know, what's his strongest attack, it would probably be that, as far as we know, other than his hacks. And it literally just kind of rips off some skin off of the Susanoo. It doesn't actually do any damage.
Excuse me.
Sasuke literally grabs him, and I'm not joking, he just crushes him like a piece of paper.
Yeah, it's like... Whoop.
So, the other argument, though, if you want a more direct scale of Danzo, is that how does he scale to Sannin level? Like, how does he actually scale to Orochimaru?
Oh, and Jiraiya and Tsunade. Yeah.
So now, while we do know there's a relationship between Orochimaru and Danzo, it does seem somewhat headcanonly implied that Orochimaru is the superior of their duo. Danzo wanted Orochimaru to be the Kage, for the most part, not only because of his decision-making in their relationship, but probably because it makes more sense than him being Kage. But, on top
Likes to do
of
things
that,
in the shadows.
the Konoha elders
Black Ops.
wanted Jiraiya or Tsunade to be Kage over Danzo. And in fact, Kakashi was also being recommended.
Yeah, like,
as
no one
Kage.
wants Danzo to be the
And
Hokage.
then, after everything else pretty much failed, it was just they decided to go with Danzo over Kakashi after Tsunade and Jiraiya were out of the picture.
Yeah.
Implying that the Sannin were better Kage candidates than someone like Danzo. So,
Yeah.
it could be heavily implied that Danzo was not Sannin level. So.
And then, like, even with that, the Hokage is supposed to be the strongest in the village. That's kind of what they go for, as well as being trustworthy. So they're not going to pick someone who's weak just to be Hokage just because they're trustworthy. So you could kind of imply even Kakashi over Danzo. And then going through Data Book 3, this seems to be somewhat consistent. So Data Book 3 says about Kakashi, the hand that combines spirit and technique.
Well, see, with me, I thought it was like they didn't want Danzo to be Hokage because of the way he deals with things. Like, it's not like
He's also called
the
the
normal
number one
way
ninja.
that Konoha deals with things.
And if you look at the Shinobi data chart, it tells you what the little symbol by the people on the data book means, and it means that Danzo is a Konoha Shinobi at the time. So
Yeah, so even though he was kicked out of, like, the root thing and his root was discontinued, he's still a Konoha Shinobi. That was never, like, stricken from him. So, whether or not this applies to Part 1, if it applies to Part 1, that Kakashi is just objectively stronger than Danzo, even in Part 1, then it only applies to this part, then it means that at least Pain Arc Kakashi is stronger than Danzo.
Yeah.
And this is interesting because Shukaku is basically the top dog in terms of intelligence in the Leaf Village. He's like, no, Kakashi should be, like, the
Yeah, he's super
Hokage.
clever.
And
It's
then
just like,
Danzo's
what are you doing, guys?
he's loosening right
Cool.
now. The argument Danzo makes to become Kage is not even his power level or anything. It's due to, like, the reasoning. He's like, no, you've given all these Kage a chance. You need someone like me now. You need
That's
someone
exactly it.
with
That's
your
what I thought. It's like,
mindset,
yeah, don't want him to be
this
Hokage
village.
because he deals with
And
everything
that's
differently. And
why
he's like,
was
nah.
specifically chosen at the time. And a lot of the things, they were also trying to bring up, you know, Kakashi's age, he's young, he's, you know, stuff like that. They were, like, doubting him a little bit, but not because of his power level. So you could argue even Danzo being chosen, even though Hokage is supposed to be the strongest in the village, that Danzo being chosen as Hokage was the feudal lord being a little bit ignorant and being manipulated, which might be Koto Matsukami as well. We never really know. But at the time, that's what we know about him. So it seems as though if you're trying to be more rational, that the Sannin are probably stronger than Danzo. And Danzo is
Interesting.
probably, if anything, weaker than Kakashi, and this is actually somewhat implied by Kakashi also reacting to a stronger Sasuke.
Oh,
Susanoo
yeah,
era.
because like you said, Danzo
Whereas
weren't
Danzo
able
could
to react to
barely
it,
do that
and Kakashi
to
did.
a
So okay, I
weaker
take
Sasuke.
that. I take
So
that.
if the
Yeah,
Sasuke
cool.
Susanoo type is based on this power level, which is actually implied when it first gets the clothes and the bow and arrow, it's actually stated he's stronger. Then when Sasuke's Susanoo doesn't just get clothes, but full armor, like Itachi's Susanoo, then
It's a stronger form of the
Kakashi
Susanoo,
reacts
yeah.
to it.
And he reacts,
And
yeah, so,
Kakashi
and
has
Danzo wasn't able
actually
to in a
better
lower
feats
form. Right,
at that
yeah.
time, which further supports he is the number one shinobi over Danzo as well. So, with that out of the way, you can somewhat imply that Hiruzen is stronger than Danzo.
Like, just speaking of Itachi, because we went over this a little bit before video. After Hiruzen dies, Itachi comes back to the village in order to, like, kind of flex on Danzo, like, yeah, I'm still here. Don't mess with Sasuke.
Yeah.
And Seth was saying, this may imply that since Hiruzen's dead and Itachi's doing this, that prior to his death, Hiruzen is the thing keeping Danzo in check. So maybe like, because Danzo doesn't really listen to Hiruzen.
I suppose, yeah. So like, as soon as Hiruzen's out of the picture, Itachi's like, no, I'm still around.
That Hiruzen,
right? I like that. Yeah.
Power still, which is interesting because he knows, about his power compared to say Orochimaru and stuff like that. Even hears Hiruzen talking about it. Lots of points, Hiruzen even says directly, like, no, a fight with Orochimaru is scarier than you think, and it's very obvious that Danzo probably knows that as well. If Orochimaru knew it, if Orochimaru's like, yep, what's up, old man, I know I'm going to be able to fight you now, then Danzo probably knows as well, being very close to Hiruzen throughout the years. But still, the fight is interesting, not just because of that, but it's more so, can Hiruzen actually out-hacks Danzo, or is his power level enough to overcome Danzo?
Because this was the thing with the Madara versus the Hokage, wasn't it?
Starts off with Kodo Matsukami. There's no real battle to be had. It's a genjutsu that Hiruzen arguably doesn't even know about or know that Danzo even has, and it affects you like subconsciously to the point where you don't even know.
You don't know you're under its control, yeah.
So it's kind of like weird to argue Hiruzen would just neg it without when the fight first just starts if they're in character. However, if it's used mid-battle, say like Hiruzen's using Enma, then it's a little bit more interesting because you could argue that Enma can work independently of Hiruzen and knows all his mental states and would be able to help him to
get it out of it. Right, yeah.
Yeah, so during the battle with Orochimaru, Hiruzen is obviously very distraught because he's fighting his student. Kakashi even says he feels like sort of...
Yeah, there's a lot of emotional stuff holding him back initially, isn't there? Yeah.
A feeling these people have. He's not fighting like himself, like he's literally allowing himself to be hit, things like that. And Enma starts fighting for Hiruzen, like fending off some of Hashirama's wood style, which by the way, in and of itself is a feat. He's fending off Hashirama's wood style, and he's like, Hiruzen, why are you acting so weird?
What are you doing, man? Let's do this.
So if he notices Hiruzen's like messed up or his chakra is disturbed, he could probably just break him out by handing him chakra, the same way they do to Mifune in the Kage Summit after he's out of Kodomasu.
Another thing too is if you think that Danzo has a summoning jutsu, at least by part 1, which this is debated about as well, but if you think that Danzo has his summoning jutsu in part 1, then Hiruzen's Enma is actually stronger than Danzo's elephant. He would actually be able to throw Enma at Danzo if he ever gets hit by Kodo, or at least Enma would be able to act independently, and would probably be able to put the hands on Danzo to the point where it would probably break Hiruzen out of Kodo, arguably. And this is weird because Danzo's Kodo Matsukami works a little bit different than Shisui's or Itachi's Crow, which you can also get into if you want. But
yeah, I mean, the theory is extremely simple. It's just that the eye that is on Itachi gives commands, while Danzo's eye requires a constant stream of chakra to control someone, sort of like a puppet.
Right.
So Itachi's command is protect the leaf, but with that, he can do different things to protect the leaf. Like he can teach Naruto things about teamwork, and he can go stop Kabuto, who he deems like a big threat, bigger than Obito, whatever. And Danzo, he's actively making Mifune respond to the Kage and things the Kage are saying in current time. So it's not like he gave him a set, like a script to read or anything like that. He's literally telling him like, oh, say this now, say this now.
Right.
And then that makes Al come down. He's like, oh, I recognize that chakra because Al's fought Shisui in the past sometime. And he's saying Shisui's Genjutsu lets you control people, blah, 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 without their awareness. And that's when Danzo turns it off. You're asking to like remove his bandages, show him the Sharingan.
so in terms of Kodo, if it's used at the very beginning, it probably wins by default. But if it's used mid-battle, Enma might be able to snap him out of it. Enma is strong enough to fight the Kage summonings even before he's in his staff form. Apparently his staff form is stronger than his normal state, and in his normal state he literally kicks away the Hokage summonings, which were already rivaling Orochimaru and Hiruzen to begin with. So Enma would be strong enough to actually put the hands on Danzo, as Enma is stated to be the strongest summoning and has that feat. On top of this, though, there are some weird things in terms of the fight that I actually kind of made me want to do this video, and that's misconceptions. So the first thing we need to go over, Hiruzen is strong enough to fight Danzo.
Yeah.
But does he have the stamina to? This is the biggest question. Does he have the stamina to? Now, when I was actually brainstorming this topic, I actually thought of a weird refutation to the fact that Hiruzen has bad stamina, because I actually don't believe that anymore at all. I actually think he has insane stamina. So this is the reason I think he has insane stamina. So the one thing that people point out for him having bad stamina, and I used to do this as well, literally an hour ago, is that Hiruzen fights 3 Sannin level opponents. Dude, imagine if all 3 Sannin jumped him at once, and that's pretty much what Hiruzen is doing.
Yeah.
Okay? Imagine he had to fight Jiraiya, Tsunade,
and Orochimaru
all at the same time, and maybe in their base forms. And that's pretty much what he did. And then people are like, oh, after he had to fight these 3 Sannin, he got a little bit tired. It's like, yeah, he would
be. Yeah, anyone
would.
would.
Kind of insane.
Yeah.
It's cracked. And then, after he gets a little bit tired, he then goes into basically his ultimate state, which is, the state that Haku suggests, amped Shinobi, and this applies to Hiruzen as well, in the data book as well, that when he thinks he's protecting others and he gets over his depression fighting Orochimaru, his true powers are unleashed. He then dispatches the 2 Kage, which were rivaling the Sannin, and then he squares off with Orochimaru to the point where he's tug-of-warring with his soul.
Yeah, with his soul of all
And
things.
this is stated for an hour. He's tug-of-warring with his soul for an hour.
That's a long time.
But
That's a
not
bloody
only
long time.
This is after he had to take down the 2 Sannin level Kage, was already exhausted, and then Enma has to catch a sword, impaling him from behind, and literally making him bleed out for an hour.
Yeah.
He plays tug of war with a Sannin who is already probably stronger than Danzo for an hour. And the Anbu in the background they're like, what kind of shinobi can fight for an hour? This is virtually unheard of.
This is unreal. That is unreal when you put it down like that. Like, yeah, Jesus.
Legendary stamina feat, basically. From old stamina, restricted Hiruzen, he's going this crazy. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, if Hiruzen can fight basically 3 Sannin level opponents, maybe not amped Sannin, but at least base Sannin level opponents, which are still very powerful, then that means you have to wonder, can Danzo put that same level of pressure on Hiruzen to make him that
Can he actually
Can Danzo
keep
put
going?
the same level of pressure on Hiruzen as he has to fight his own student and as well as 2 people who rival him in power all at the same time? Can Danzo put that pressure on him? And I don't think he can.
No.
I don't think he can.
No.
But can an arguably weaker than Kakuzu fight Kakashi opponent fight on the level of 3 Sannin at the same time? Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. And it's
Probably not.
to the point where it's like, okay, I want you guys to ask yourself this. Say Hiruzen goes full power, alright? It's a versus matchup, right? Say Hiruzen goes full power. He's ready to defend the Leaf Village. He's like, alright, Danzo, I'm sorry. I don't care if it's my brother or whatever. I'm gonna kill you now. Do you think that Danzo can last for an hour
No.
against Hiruzen?
No.
Because here's the thing, Sasuke doesn't have good stamina either, especially with MS. When he has EMS, he has good stamina. But MS Sasuke does not have good stamina at all. He uses a few abilities, he wants to pass out. It's just like Itachi. Itachi's Amaterasu, one time he's huffing.
And
and
he's like,
puffing.
whoa, God,
Right?
carry me home.
Same thing. Here, Sasuke uses his MS ability and runs out of stamina. But the other thing people don't know is that while Sasuke runs out of stamina very quickly using his abilities, so does Danzo. Because what people don't know is there's 2 statements of Danzo losing chakra due to using abilities. The first one is where he can barely react to Sasuke's Susanoo arrow, which is weaker and slower than the one Kakashi reacted to, wink wink. But it's also stated he loses chakra when his eyes close.
Yeah.
So whenever one of his eye abilities close due to him regenerating, he loses chakra. He basically loses power every single time. So Hiruzen, if he's whooping him up
And able to keep
with
going for so
endless
long,
staff
and he's
for
getting
an
weaker
hour,
as it goes on.
it's only
Yeah.
getting easier as time
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
on, rather than harder. Which makes it even harder to argue Danzo has the actual pressure of Orochimaru plus 2 Sannin level summonings. It's just not likely at all, at least in my opinion. But I'll let you talk 6. I ran.
No. I agree, like, completely. And then I literally just found this like mid-video.
Wait, what is this?
At the end of the Sasuke fight, when Danzo is unaliving himself, he's talking about Hiruzen, and he says, "No matter how far I ran, I could never catch up to you." So.
Oh.
There's a heavy implication there.
That's why Danzo. That's why Itachi had to remind Danzo not to mess with Sasuke after Hiruzen died.
Yeah.
Okay. there you go. So Hiruzen did actually seem to scare Danzo.
That's a heavy implication.
Anyways, guys, that's really all there is to say. Feel free to subscribe to me, get your boy to 1 million. Thank you. Also, subscribe to 6. He's amazing. And other than that, goodbye.
Sweet. That was cool. Yeah, I like that. Really good examples brought in as to why. It's always fun as well, because I like how they scale it. They'll look at certain fights and that, and then you go, this person can do that. It's boss. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, definitely Hiruzen would win. Because in my head I was like, all the techniques that Danzo has and all those Sharingan and that, but you're right, like the stamina that Hiruzen has, like if he fights for Orochimaru for an hour and does all that stuff, and then as he's fighting Danzo, if every time those eyes closing, he's getting weaker, he's gonna eventually beat him. So yeah, cool. Thanks to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video upload, a link is in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all that helps support the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you guys very much for that, and thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos, and I'll see you guys, all you guys, next time.